do this. Okay. Sorry folks, I haven't been doing shows a lot recently. I'm a little bit rusty, as you can tell. Anyway, we will do our best. Good evening. It is Wednesday night over here. We just came through the eclipse, which was just over here. And let me say hello. Yep, there we are. Good evening. So it was kind of a big deal day for the planet because a lot of people got very excited. You know, with social media and everything right now, sending messages all across the world at the speed of light. The big one was the eclipse. I am sure you've seen footage. What's going on in Europe, especially over in Spain. They had a really good view. Some spectacular imagery going on, and it's a very, very spooky phenomenon. It doesn't happen that often. I've only seen it once in my life. I was very fortunate. I lived in Venice Beach. I think it was probably like many years ago. And I knew an eclipse was coming, and I knew it was going to be very visible from where I lived. And so I went out and just kind of hung around, staring up at the sun with, special little plastic glasses and things like that. And people were wondering what I was doing, because in my little neighborhood, people would go for walks and things and drive by. And then I saw it. I saw it starting to sneak in. Hold on a minute. So I realized, oh my God, this is actually happening. I mean, I've sort of seen, like a lot of people, I've seen parts of eclipses and fragments of an eclipse, but when this picked up, it was like a 4-minute experience, and the moon took 4 minutes basically to do this. And the 4-minute period, I mean, it was a continuous thing, but for roughly, 2 or 3 minutes of that, it was a complete blackout of the sun. And it became very dark very quickly, very, very spooky. So you can see why people freak out. If it's the middle of the day, it's bright sunlight, and then it's all gone. It's very, very spooky, let's just say. Anyway, so I guess the kind of theme of the evening is going to be eclipses anyway. I've made a few notes. I want to go to the chart for a second. So we have some lingering patterns that have been here for a while. This big fat green pattern. You could look at it, I think of it as an envelope. You can see that, an old-fashioned paper envelope, and there's the flap, and you stick it down, you glue it down. So inside this envelope, it's built of a massive, very powerful grand trine at this very moment in time. Venus, Pluto, and Uranus. And my impression is that, again, with this kind of arrangement, it creates an incredibly stable environment in which evolution can happen, because evolution is often painful, random, seemingly random, and very difficult to understand. The story of the giraffe and their neck, for example, or with some people you can track evolution and mutations, like with certain bugs and little things, like on the Galapagos Islands, how things change over time. Things mutate, things change over time as living organisms find ways to survive because they have to. In other words, evolve or die. It's very simple. So added to the big fat grand trine are these sextiles here, 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 which basically amplifies the opportunity. The opportunity to evolve is here, and this is the support and the amplification. So it's a very, very, very powerful piece of astrology. It's very beneficial for our species. It gives us the framework in which we can make massive evolutionary leaps forward in our destiny as a species, our survival as a species. The thing is, as you can see, innately built into that structure are very powerful oppositions here and here. And that happens with, well, by definition, it comes with this green setup here. There's if you look at it, here's another, let's see if I can do it this way. Can you see the kite, that green kite? A kite automatically has a massive opposition built into the core of it. And there happens to be a secondary kite here. Again, massive oppositions. Oppositions are relationship dynamics, like you versus the other. And in a pure opposition like this, which is very powerful, it's 180 degrees. So it's the same as the analogy I like to think of is, you know how Donald Trump likes to have his meetings on camera, and the camera is filming Donald Trump in one chair and the other person in the other chair, and they're sitting in an Oval Office or a special room or something. But what we see are two people facing each other like this, face to face. So if I was Donald Trump, I'd be looking at, CNN newscaster like this. I'd be looking at you straight in the eye, and CNN would be looking at me straight in the eye. There's nowhere to hide because I'm sitting that close to you, straight across. There's nowhere to hide. And you can kind of pretend to have your conversation like this, well, blah, 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 or, I could, blah, 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 blah. But reality, Trump takes advantage of the system and goes right into it, okay? So that's an opposition. Now, in the opposition dynamic, it's the Aries-Libra axis. It's the self versus other axis. It's the marriage versus the singles axis. And one of the easiest ways to understand it is a marriage. Libra, if you go back to the basics of astrology, Aries and Libra, Aries is the sign of the self, your sovereignty, your right to be you, your God-given birthright for you, and your duty, obligation to be you. And everybody has that in their chart somewhere. Hi, necessary. And then the Libra element is the Venus-ruled sign of the other. And it's the sign of partnership, because the reality is humans cannot evolve without partnerships, especially one-on-one partnerships where you can make babies and reproduce and enhance the opportunity for evolution. Maybe you'll give birth to a little genius or something like that, and you can't necessarily plan it all, okay? Yes, I'm very proud of this. It was a gift. Yes. Yes, somebody noticed. Thank you. I don't know what the sleeve says. It might be the brand. Some brand or other. I don't know. And so, as you've probably noticed, in America, marriage is a very popular thing. People love to get married and have homes and make babies and so on. Some people get married for all sorts of reasons. If you're young and you're fired up by testosterone, you could be married for any sort of reasons. The most healthy marriages are comprised of a male and a female who have ambitions above and beyond their own, sexual gratification or something. They are looking to create a future between themselves and each other, particularly through making children. So it's an incredibly important part of our existence here on Earth. And you've also probably noticed that the failure rate is very high, potentially very high. It's actually, again, it's basic biology. Not everybody is suitable for marriage, males or females, and even males who are suitable for marriage, females who are suitable for marriage don't necessarily meet the right partner at the right time, at the right place, for the right reasons. And they get confused and mixed up, and they think, oh, wow, it's all about the money, because I know we're going to need house and a car. And so the woman might have married an absolute asshole to convince herself, well, he's got plenty of money, he's very stable, hardworking. Yeah, he's a bit of an asshole, but we're going to make babies and it's all going to be perfect. And it, anything and everything can go wrong. The thing is that about the 180 degree opposition dynamic is that there's nowhere to hide. Like if you're in a marriage type of situation, typically marriages, they don't have anywhere to hide. And the partners, the two marriage partners, are acutely aware of each other's behavior, and a lot of times they discover things about themselves and each other that they did not know before the marriage occurred. And then they have to evolve or they perish. So evolution and marriage is kind of like a crucible. A crucible is a very, very strong, typically circular structure, like a very deep bowl. You know when you have those bowls for mashing up herbs? It's sort of like that. A crucible is typically very heavy, and it's built to withstand intense pressure as you put the ingredients inside and you grind them all up to produce something new. And a marriage is like that. If the two parties meet up and they end up being a very harmonious, beneficial couple, then a marriage can be the best thing that ever happens in each other's life. It doesn't always happen, obviously, and a lot of times you don't discover until you've actually dived into the crucible of marriage, the crucible of partnership. And because the compulsion to procreate and evolve is so powerful, it's extremely powerful, people are compelled to jump into the crucible. A lot of people, men and women, but mostly men, they don't want to stay in the crucible. They just want to get in there, do their business, and get out. Women tend to have a stronger realization that the real benefit is having a really good crucible that benefits both parties. And out of the crucible grows a new thing, which is not you, it's not them, it's a new thing. It's an actual marriage, and the marriage has an identity astrologically of its own, oddly enough. So anyway, actually I do those things every now and again in relationship readings at the personal level of astrology. But anyway, this is about the world. So looking back at the world, let's go. So looking at the world, we have this amazing piece of astrology, this green stuff, which is sort of like this beautiful opportunity, like a massive global crucible for amazing things to happen. And inside that crucible, for amazing things to happen, the participants have to face off each other at 180 degrees. There's no way out of it. And it's intense pressure. And what comes out of it is what we're living through right now on planet Earth. And it's different for everybody. So this is a universal chart that applies to everyone and everything on Earth right now, whether you're a bee, a plant, a goat, a whale, a mountain, a volcano, a city, a corporation, a leader, a politician, a criminal, a lover, a housekeeper, a McDonald's employee. This affects us all. If you're born at this moment in time, then this would be your astrology chart, depending on your ascendant, of course, which could be anywhere. But the basic planets would be laid out roughly like this. Now, the actual eclipse happened, I guess, last night or early this morning. The moon has already moved on, but at the eclipse, the moon was sitting right here. The moon has already moved on. So anyway, I got some thoughts about the eclipses. First of all, the eclipse is in Leo, So I've talked about this plenty of times already. The Leo theme. Oh, Mars in Cancer, good question. Mars just entered Cancer. America is going to become very combative. It's either going to be on the receiving end of combat or it's going to be on the delivery end of combat. America very much wants to survive under this particular administration, and sometimes that means having to be very forceful. Mars in Cancer is not a happy placement because the Cancerian energy is typically, you think about home and family. And the fourth house is about foundations, defense and protection, home and family, making a home, making a family, and security and stability as the foundation for everything in our existence. Mars in Cancer sort of indicates, well, someone's going to have to guard our castle. Someone's going to guard my little castle, my little world. So it would indicate, like, are you well protected in your home? Do you have a good home security camera system? Are you well protected with defense tools and everything that goes with it? Are you aware of the laws in your city, state, and country regarding self-defense? In America, we're very, very fortunate because we have the Second Amendment, which is there to protect the First Amendment. And so Mars in Cancer, it's a little uncomfortable, it's a little volatile. It could also indicate conflict in the home. In other words, if it's a very challenging situation, luckily there isn't a very heavy aspect on Mars right now, so anything and everything could happen. Mars in Cancer could indicate conflict in the home, conflict in the homeland. Well, inside America, we do have a lot of conflict in the homeland. A lot of it is very violent. I don't know if you've noticed things like ICE patrols going out, grabbing illegals and criminals and fraudsters, and then having to face off with extremely violent protesters who want to stop ICE, things like that. And it's all caught on camera. People literally losing their minds, going violent and berserk. We've had all the assassinations. We're aware of about 4 assassinations now on Trump. He's probably more vulnerable now than ever before in his history. And I watched a snippet the other day. He said, by the way, everybody, he casually mentioned there are a lot more incidents that occur than you may be aware of. So, yeah, he knows he's a target 24/7. There's been a lot of drama on the news about how he was leaving Turkey and how he had to switch jets and airplanes in order to protect himself from an assassination threat on Air Force One. That's just one story. But Mars in Cancer, on the healthy expression, it means making sure you've got your defenses up and ready for the home. Be prepared to fight for your home. Be prepared to face off intruders. Okay? Face off an intruder. Protect your territory. Protect your home. Protect your family. Protect your turf. The flip side is that you could be on the receiving end of some violence, or the other, even worse expression is conflict inside the home. Let's say there's an unhealthy relationship. The partners could turn on each other. Family members can turn on each other. So that's different expressions of Mars in Cancer. Thanks for asking. Anyway, that's over here. Not heavily aspected. Also not heavily aspected is Chiron in Taurus. On the other hand, I have some opinions I want to share about that. Chiron is like the perpetual wound that never heals. It's with us all our lives, where each one of us is born with it somewhere, somehow. Chiron in Taurus, in my opinion, indicates the deep, deep wound on this planet Earth. The animals, the sky, the water, the rivers, the lakes, the oceans, our belief systems. Like money is a belief system. There's a lot of pain going across the world in terms of money right now. Everyone's screaming, A lot of pundits are screaming, oh, it's the end of the fiat system. America is propping up Japan to prop up America, and on and on and on. What's happening in cryptos? What about the Clarity Act? On and on and on and on. But the things that I'm seeing most of all are the very raw, deepest elements of Taurus energy, which is often expressed in things like volcanoes, fires, hurricanes, floods, droughts, earthquakes. And we're seeing a ton of that all over the place, everywhere. Just before the show here, just before I went live, there was a massive torrential outburst. I'm very lucky to have any rain at all, but enough rain came out to flood the streets, flood people's yards, and so on, in a matter of 10 minutes. And then the storms moved away, went on to other places. But if you've seen some of my posts on X, remember I have an X channel now, and I archive a lot of stuff there that I don't have a time or ability to post or do here on my live streams. And the things that concern me a lot are, of course, the massive fires across North America, Canada, Washington, Oregon, bits of Colorado, scary, California, even Nevada had a massive breakout. It's very, very scary. Fires are absolutely terrifying. Then, of course, we had the massive earthquake in Colombia just the other day. Staggering, a 7-point something earthquake. Absolutely mind-boggling. Oh, I'll come to that. I'm coming to that in a minute, okay, Necessary? So, regarding flooding, China is in a very, very bad state right now because China has ignored nature. The Chinese Communist Party since 1949 has completely abandoned nature and God, believing that communism is above nature and above God. So fast forward, Xi Jinping for the last 15 years or so is the perfect example. And he did everything he could to expand China as fast as possible to make it look very successful and flashy. And of course, it's a massive delusion because China is falling apart. It is disintegrating from the bottom up because of if you look at China's astrology, they have a very treacherous identity and very deceptive nature in the way it conducts itself. But of course, that is the mechanism of communism. It's all deception, betrayal, theft, lies, violence, abuse, propaganda, manipulation, anything to favor the communists over the people. It's a very, very extreme form of behavior. Anyway, communism in China has led to a point where they've got whatever it is, over 1 billion people living on what would normally be, floodplains and arable plains, rocky mountain areas, rivers, lakes, and streams that over thousands of years just had a natural course from mountains through the plains and over to the oceans in eastern China, in the Pacific. But of course, Xi Jinping said, no, we're going to, all these beautiful flat places, it's great for real estate. So they built these insane cities, like 100 million condos, apartments, homes that are completely unoccupied, unusable because they're so badly built and it was all built on financial corruption to begin. So it was a complete, utter waste of human resources. But Xi Jinping doesn't care because it looks great, or it looked great at the time. And he's still behaving that way. But the net result is that you've got massive cities like Shanghai with 20 million people built pretty much on a floodplain facing the Pacific. And west of Shanghai, you've got about 1,000 miles of plains and oceans and mountains and rivers and lakes and streams that flow towards Shanghai and other East Coast cities. And it just so happened that Typhoon Dolphin, a massive, massive hurricane, was blowing recently into China. It already slammed, hit parts of Taiwan, it hit parts of Japan, and then it slammed right into Shanghai and brought enormous amounts of rain and wind and destruction heading westward into Shanghai. Now, that's all happening at the same time. That massive flooding and destruction from western China, way back in western China, was flooding moving towards Shanghai. So you had these two massive flood events coming and meeting in one place, Shanghai. And they don't have like storm drain systems. They claim that they do, but they don't. It's just tarmac and concrete built on top of dirt. Because they thought, well, no one's going to ever look under there, so it doesn't really matter. And the contractors just do what they did. Fake fire hydrants, fake manhole covers, fake storm drains. So what happens? What happens in a floodplain that has 20 million people in it? So you get a disaster. I look at that as a classic element of Chiron. Very, very painful story regarding Chiron. The other thing is some of the volcanoes. There was one in Italy. Earthquakes, the big one in Colombia. Hundreds of people dead now. Absolutely catastrophic. And we're going to have this for roughly the next, I think, year and a half or so, something like that, maybe even 2 years. I don't know how long. I forgot to look. I forgot how long Chiron is going to be in Taurus, but my feeling is we're going to see lots of very painful natural disaster events. And that's not marked on the chart here. It's just something I needed to mention. Anyway, let me go back again. So we've got these two polarities. Where's my pen? Oh, we've got these two massive oppositions here and one here. This one is based on Leo opposing Aquarius. Of course, this is an extremely powerful dynamic because it's based on foundation of Pluto. Pluto's in retrograde in Aquarius. The revolution has already started, and we're already well into it. The very first chapters of the revolution, which is going to be a 20-year journey. We're well into it, one or 2 years into it, and you've already got a feel for what this looks like. Basically, a revolution, violent revolution all over planet Earth as the species, our species, decides that it wants freedom over tyranny. Because our species has been dormant for the last, 65 years or so, complacent under the decay of our species, and reaching a state of complacency where eventually in 2024 we almost got taken over by globalized communism. It did not happen, thank God, and a lot of that is because of what's happening in America with our leadership here, which has a very, very strong Leo element of our leadership. Donald Trump, massive Leo rising with Pluto and Mars. J.D. Vance, massive, powerful Pluto energy. So J.D. Vance alone and Donald Trump alone are being heavily enhanced by this Leo energy, effectively acting as a personification of opposition to the bad side of the revolution. The bad side of the revolution is communism. Hyper-violent, evil communism. Notice how communism and community sound very, very similar and could easily be confused for the same thing. Like, a really good communist, all they care about is what's good for the community. You get it? Anyway, a real community is very much unlike communism. Communism is a fancy word for complete tyrannical totalitarian evil. Community is for what I like to think of that we have here. Just a bunch of people that have a mutual interest. I'm not trying to own you or control you. You're not trying to own me or control me. We're just trying to figure out what's best for our species, what's best for you, and so on. Because we want freedom. We want to have the right to be us. I want the right to be me. I want to be free. I want to be able to move around my community without feeling like I'm going to be attacked or someone's going to come up and yell at me and tell me they're going to kill me, which is what I talked about the other night, which is what happened. I don't like people coming up into my face telling me they're going to kill me. So there's that going on. The most obvious way it's being expressed is in the Iran war, where Donald Trump and his military with Pete Hegseth, the Department of War, and so on, are basically holding a beautiful, powerful, massive Leo force opposing the communists over here. The ingredients of the communists over here are, number one, the British Imperial Empire, and then by extension the Muslim Brotherhood, and then the Islamic IRGC extortion racket, and then generalized communism around the world. So Trump is facing off on all of that. Over here with this polarity, it's a more generic polarity, and I feel this is much to do with the relationships going on between ourselves and each other as a species, where we the people are starting to realize it's true. All the theft, betrayal, deception, crime, evil, the bug number 19, and the injections that go with it, all the fraud, fake elections, everything like that, everything that was fake, which was pretty much everything, has been exposed, and now accountability is coming in, and it's extremely uncomfortable. You know, people like Fauci and Brennan and what's his name, ex-CIA, FBI guy, or whatever his name was. Anyway, a lot of big name people that became very prominent under the Biden administration and the Biden family are having the veils of deception stripped away. That's part of the eclipse. So that's going to be my segue to the eclipses. And we the people want peace, love, and harmony. That's Venus in Libra. Venus is very happy in Libra. That's its home turf. So Venus wants harmony, peace, and love in relationships. The only way it can get that is by holding accountable all these evil people. All the evil that's being exposed needs to be held accountable. It's very, very hard to do that because Neptune in Aries will try to dissolve any attempt by Saturn in Aries to get accountability. Saturn will work very hard to try and get accountability on the Neptune deception, but it's very, very hard to do. That's why we're seeing such difficulty in putting these evil criminals in prison. All the people who killed millions, like Fauci, he's responsible for the death of millions of people. Oh gosh, I can't, hold on, I'm looking at the chat here, hold on. AI is the new Aquarius species. Yes, very much so. Aquarius is ruled by Uranus. Uranus is in Gemini. Uranus is very happy in Gemini. And so we're going to see a lot of radical stuff happening in the world of advanced electronics like AI, and the healthy expression of AI and the toxic expression of AI. The toxic expression would be things like central bank digital currencies, or mass global surveillance, or your brand new, let's say you bought a brand new Hyundai or brand new, I don't know, Chevy or something, and you're starting to see all these weird lights and buttons and things that look like little cameras are watching you. and you start to realize, what is that? And you're driving along doing something, and suddenly your car stops, and you suddenly realize that, oh my God, my car is controlled and under surveillance by these flock camera Palantir type companies. It's absolutely terrifying. It's evil. It's pure, pure evil. But it's happening exactly at the same time. And it's up to us to call it out. The revolution is AI. Yeah. Well, AI is about intelligence. Uranus is about intelligence. Like you said, the word no is in Aquarius, ruled by the mantra, I know. Yes, I know. Thank you, necessary. I see the age of Aquarius being an AI revolution, kind of like the Industrial Revolution. Correct. We the people can't do much about AI. That's the revolution that we will see. It will evolve whether we like it or know it or not. And it's up to us as a species to corral this new energy force. It's basically very advanced, Google search engines, but they're taking every piece of global information and knowledge that we have as a species and trying to put it in a box. Just like a library, I love going to the library. I have a library near here. I like to go hang out there because it's serene and calm, and there's, thousands of books and things. And I feel very supported, like I can study, I can think clearly, I feel safe, I can ask questions, and so on. And it has air conditioning. Yeah, Aquarius, Uranus energy is very much involved with spontaneous knowledge, spontaneous awareness, like waking up from a dream and realizing, I just had a great idea. Poof! Where did that come from? It came from out there. Thanks to Uranus, poof! Then it manifests in your brain as an idea, a concept, a tune. Mix that up with a bit of Neptune and Pisces, and then you have like the classic artist, the musician, the composer, the inventor. Scientists, especially scientists. Anyway, I want to go to some notes here. How am I going to do this? All right. So I just want to talk a little bit about the eclipses. As some of you know, I think of eclipses as evolutionary gateways, where it can be very uncomfortable. The analogy I use sometimes, let me see if I can do a doodle. Hold on, let me do a doodle because it's been a very long time. Let's have a look here. Okay, this is like a little chart, a graph. Okay, that is time. And this is evolution. So eclipses are very predictable. And I can show you. Let me see if I can find something on it here. Just so that you know I don't make up all this stuff. There's the retrogrades for the year, planetary emotions for the year. Here, like for example, here's the eclipses. Here's all the new moons and the full moons. So I like to cover that on the channel. But here's the here we are. So here's the 2026 eclipses, for example. And you can predict these out for months and years in advance, and I have charts that do all of that stuff. So we're on the third batch of eclipses this year. There's two, they always go together in pairs. Sorry, the second batch. This is the first batch. There's usually 2 or 3 batches a year. Here's the second batch, August 12th, today, and the 28th, 2 weeks from now when we get the lunar eclipse. So, I wonder if I can show the other part of the chart. Hold on, give me a second. Nah, okay, never mind. So anyway, doopy doopy doo, we as a species, we're living our lives, and time is ticking along. Good things happen, bad things happen. Oh, that was rough. There was the last eclipse. So good things happen, bad things happen. Oh, we evolved and then we devolved. We hurt ourselves. Oh, we did something really smart. We invented something, then we hurt ourselves, and then we hit an eclipse, and it kind of goes like this. And this is the human, let's say this is the human experience as you would measure it in the terms of evolution. We're doing the best we can, good days, bad days, good weeks, good months, and so on. And then we hit the eclipses, a 2-week period. And I look at it as one of those industrial elevators that you get inside big buildings, where they do all the furniture moving and all the cleaning equipment and so on. And they are usually double doored. And so, in an eclipse, we enter here through this door. Usually it's unwitting. We just end up here and we think, oh, I feel a bit weird. Things are happening. That's weird. That's an eclipse. Ooh, what's happening? And then, whoa, what just happened? 2 weeks later, this door opens and we get ejected. And then we go on to the next steps of evolution until the next eclipse, whether it's a new moon or a full moon. This is a new one, so it's new starts and new beginnings in Leo. So this would be the one that opens here. This stays closed. This stays closed. And God, nature, whatever you want to call it, is the one that activates the doorways. So this opens. And then once we're inside, it closes. There's no going back. You can't go back. You can try, but it's going to backfire. And then we get up here, you realize, oh, wait a minute, I still want to go back. But this gate is closed. You have no option to go out here because that's the only one that's open and you want to survive. So you go out here and you resume with your life. So that's my diagrammatic explanation of an eclipse. It's an evolutionary gateway. That's the gateway here, that's the gateway there, and that's the evolutionary leap. And we're very, very fortunate to have this circumstance right now where we can make massive evolutionary leaps. The thing is about making massive evolutionary leaps, it's sometimes extremely painful on people who do not want to evolve or people who prosper from denying evolution or trying to make their living by hurting humanity. So anyway, I hope that makes sense. I'll put that back over here. And this goes on in perpetuity. So long as our solar system and our planet is here, we will keep having all of this. All right, so I got a few notes. I just want to get into it, just give you my impressions, okay? So I'm just going to do it over here. Hold on, there's some stuff happening on my screen. What the hell is going on here? What the hell? Where's my... Oh. Where? Can you see what's going on? I don't know what's going on. Something just happened on my stream. I don't know. I can't tell what's going on. Technical glitches. What's going on? Hold on. What's that? We the people can't do much without AI anymore. Yeah, I use AI all the time. Mostly just for asking complex questions. Teal, I missed you. I've been off Rumble. Yeah, I hope you're well. Well, I've found a way to stream on Rumble and YouTube at the same time. Macy Blue, you are the best. So stoked I'm on YouTube. Thank you. Yeah. Anyway, the way we operate here on my little channel is that I think we're a very elite little group because not a lot of people are very interested in the stuff I talk about. I don't know why. I think it's very, very important stuff for the whole planet, for the whole world, but I think other people are just more absorbed with other things in life. I have to check my astrology every single day so I do not take a wrong turn. Anyway, let me get to my notes about the eclipses. So eclipses, in general, what does that mean? It means something is eclipsed, like on the new moon eclipse today. Pretend my face is the sun. For 4 minutes, the sun was eclipsed out of existence, like it suddenly doesn't exist. It was absolutely terrifying for some people. Oh, good. Thanks for comforting notes there. And the same phenomenon exists for our life experience. So, with a new moon's solar eclipse, that's an indication that something somewhere is being eclipsed out of our world, our life, our experience, our activities, our awareness. Something is being eclipsed. In a personal astrology reading, we would take your chart and find out exactly where the Leo new moon eclipse was sitting. And it was probably, 18, 20 degrees of Leo somewhere. Let me just check. Where were we? All right, over here. Yeah, 20 degrees. So I would have been looking in your chart for 20 degrees Leo. Where is 20 degrees Leo in your chart? And then we would examine that point and find out what is being eclipsed out of your life so that you can evolve. Because eclipses typically tend to rip away things that are no longer healthy or relevant or appropriate for life or the continuity of our species. So I've just got a few little examples that I noticed because I've been tracking this for a while. Somebody got eclipsed out of a major vote today. I made a lot of notes very quickly. I forgot her name because it only came out later today. But she's a commie. She's a hardcore commie, Hong Huang Wong or something like that. She got eclipsed out of the vote. She felt absolutely assured, according to the polls and MSNBC and CNN, they were all thinking she's going to win, she's going to win. But she failed. She lost to a wishy-washy, middle-of-the-road Democrat. And if you saw the clip on CNN, I think it was CNN, it was a shocker because the hosts on CNN they literally could not believe the charts that they were seeing. And they started to realize, oh my God, our scam vote failed because it was discovered that there were a lot of discrepancies in the vote. So, to me, commies are useless, evil, irrelevant. They need to be exterminated like vermin. And this commie got eclipsed out of her chance to being in office. Kapoof. Having got to the point where she truly believed she was going to assume office, and all of her fans. Another story, Iran got eclipsed out of the Middle East in terms of power. Iran is totally broke. They have no money. Their currency has collapsed. Their markets are collapsing. They have a lot of trouble with food and water. A lot of troubles with infrastructure. Trump was very kind. He did not totally destroy all of their airports or all of their electricity production. So there's still a chance for survival. But as a functioning country, they are completely eclipsed out of existence. They can't fight anymore. They can't, it's just hollow words, hollow propaganda. Because Iran has been operating as a very evil extortion racket since 1947, apparently. And it was all designed by the British Empire through layers of deception and separation so that you couldn't track it back to the British Empire. But the whole goal from over 100 years ago was to make sure that the Middle East never had a chance to become sovereign and have its own wealth and its own abundance from all the vast oil resources. So the British Empire figured that, well, we'll do the classic divide and conquer approach. So they fomented, things like religious warfare and social warfare in the Arab nations, and it worked very, very well. They created the Muslim Brotherhood. They created the original forms of Marxism and communism in London with Karl Marx. And it's all about maintaining the British Empire, which had existed for hundreds and hundreds of years. And they were used to having a lot of power and money and control until Trump came along. Kaboom! 250 years ago, the British got slammed by the revolutionaries and the forefathers and the founders of America. The British did not like getting slammed, and ever since 1776, they have been scheming and plotting and finding ways to reclaim America. The first big success was 1913, the reinstitution of a central bank in America, now called the Federal Reserve. And ever since 1913, I don't know, the value of our dollar has just gone like this. And that's all by design. Anyway, we are fighting back. Iran, the IRGC, was a proxy of the British Empire, designed to extort, or what you could call it, a terror tariff. In other words, a percentage of anything and everything that moves through the Strait of Hormuz. It's an extortion racket. In other words, hello, I have a gun to your head. You can't take your oil from there to there unless you go through my little Strait of Hormuz. So you got to pay me. How much oil do you have on board? $100 million worth? You got to give me $10 million. Thank you. Okay, proceed. Next ship, line up. So it's a toll booth. It's an extortion bracket toll booth that is now shut down. Eclipsed out of existence. The Iran IRGC is effectively being eclipsed out of existence, at least in material terms. They can't pay the soldiers. They can't fund anything anymore. They're completely crippled. Thank you, Scott Bessent. The next thing that is being eclipsed is the actual British imperial extortion racket itself, which goes way beyond oil and gas in the Middle East. It mostly goes into the world of globalization and also the destruction of America from within. And what else you call it? Basically, financial extortion system. All of that is being targeted and demolished by Donald Trump and his administration. Donald Trump is trying to reconstitute the Constitution, redeclare the Declaration of Independence, and rebuild the American system of economy, which is based on sovereignty, industry, independence, creativity, and open commerce, one nation to another. We're not here to try and superimpose colonialism on the rest of the world. Trump wants fair exchange, fair trade between America and Venezuela, America and Iran, America and Iraq, America and Argentina, America and Sudan, America and Germany, America and Poland. He just wants fair trade where the Polish can prosper, Sudan can prosper, Russia can prosper, China. He wants people to prosper through industry and fairness and honesty and integrity, and that's what he's doing. The problem is that the various versions of tyranny, in other words, the British imperial system, communism like China, Russia, Iran, Myanmar, North Korea, Cuba, and the wannabes like Mamdani in New York, Gavin Newsom, California, and all the crazy people in Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Texas, they do not want to evolve. They've worked very, very hard to get to this point where they feel that they still have a chance to take over the world and spread tyrannical communism over the whole planet, because they're still very alive. They still have massive financial assets behind them, despite the collapse of what's her name, Kamala Harris, and the Democrat Party funding. There's still billions of dollars funding the communist regime, but it is incrementally being eclipsed out of existence. The first step, basically what's happening, the first step is destroy, the biggest, most obvious mechanism is the Iran extortion racket. So that's been destroyed. Destroyed the Venezuela racket. They're going to destroy the Cuba racket. They're going to destroy the China, Mexico, Central and South America drug racket. That's all systematically being dismantled and destroyed. All of that stuff is one version or another of the commie, tyrannical, evil, shadow, dark side of Pluto expression in Aquarius. What we're looking at now is the recalibration of planet Earth. The globalists, headquartered in Europe, Northern Europe, and England, they already know that the show is over. So they're trying to recalibrate and rebuild and evolve in their own way to try and have another attempt to impose globalized communism, globalism / evil, tyranny. And it's becoming much, much harder because Trump has proven that he can totally destroy elements of the empire one by one. Venezuela just took a few days. Iran, 4 months. March, April, May, June, July. 4.5, 5, let's call it 5 months to completely obliterate 50 years of tyranny in Iran. And he's going to be moving on. He's going to be doing it to the global financial system. He's going to be doing it to Southeast Asia. He's going to be doing it to Cuba. And the more he does that, the less and less power is available on the global scale for Europe, the British Empire, and Canada. Canada is now being restructured as the new headquarters for globalism. It's getting very, very weird. That's Mark Carney and his evil European cronies. Over here in America, another thing that's being eclipsed. The veils of deception are being eclipsed regarding certain characters. Democrat Socialists of America, Islam in America, Muslim Brotherhood in America, tyranny in America, especially the obvious puppets, Mamdani and El Sayed, and the wannabes over in Wisconsin and Minnesota and Michigan. They are all now fully exposed for their tyranny and their communist agenda. And that's their problem, is now that they feel they have a very strong foothold in America and they're going to breed and stretch themselves across America, it's not going to be so easy as they thought. They've been eclipsed. Their veil of deception is gone. Anybody who's aware of what's happening in America is now fully conscious that there is radical Islam communism spreading or attempting to be spread across America. The veil of deception was eclipsed. There's nowhere to hide anymore. They're very obvious wherever they are. So that makes it much easier for people like me, voters like me, to have a chance at getting rid of them by voting. voting them out of office or voting them out of ever even getting near to office. Okay, next eclipse. China. China itself, the Chinese Communist Party. I believe deep down the CCP is getting eclipsed out of its own existence. That's partly because, I'll show you, let's see if I can do this. China has a really nasty birth chart for the Communist Party. It's loaded up with violence, abuse, and evil. It has a Aquarius Leo horizon. So China is Aquarius rising. So it's just like, oh, okay, we're all about the community of China. Yeah. No, it's communism. Sorry. And over here, China is born with Mars and Pluto in Leo in the 7th house. So there's a tremendous amount of power available either for getting amazing things done in terms of executive expression very effectively and powerfully, or you could say take the same power and be extremely destructive. CCP chooses destruction and evil. So since this axis is so powerful right now, this particular journey here of Pluto is going to give us another 15 or so Leo seasons. We're in a Leo season right now. In another year from now, we're going to have another massive polarity right here. So I believe the demise of China Communist Party is officially underway, and I'm seeing it where I do my research. It's official. It's decomposing. It is disintegrating from the inside out. It has nowhere else to go because it's built on evil. And just like what's happening in Iran, it will either collapse under its own weight of evil or it will be taken out by revolution. So that's happening right now. China is in very, very deep trouble, and they're consolidating everything they can to stop the population. Put it this way. A lot of people in China know that China is doomed. A lot of the rich people who got rich through the evils of communism know that it's doomed, and they're trying to get out and get their money out without being held hostage by Xi Jinping. Hey, right now, the most important thing for Xi Jinping, he's trying to stop all the money and the rich people and the smart people in China from leaving with their brains and their money. Because China is bleeding out. It's completely bleeding out, but it's so big, and it's already kind of crippled, but it has a long way to go before it completely disintegrates. But we're well into it now. The eclipse, I believe today, I would say, is an official declaration that the CCP is doomed, and it will be eclipsed out of existence during the Pluto cycle, which is over the next 18, 17 years or so. The most obvious timestamps will be during Leo season over the next 17, 18 years. So if you're interested, keep an eye on that. That's what I'll be doing. Next. Oh, hold on. Something's glitching over here. Next, the Russian economy. What is being eclipsed out of Russia? Well, their economy is being eclipsed, partly because of sanctions by America and parts of Europe, but by Russians' own choices. Vladimir Putin thought he could get away with his antics for almost, 4 or 5 years ago. It's having a spectacular failure. But of course, with a megalomaniac, narcissist, tyrannical sociopath, the idea of failure and loss and rejection is unacceptable. So he has to keep going. And in so doing, he is destroying his own country, his own economy. Huge part, enormous chunks of his oil and gas industry is gone. The Russian ruble is trash. The Russian population is withdrawing trillions of rubles out of the banks. So the Russian banking system is crippled, and it's going to continue to be more and more crippled. I wouldn't be surprised in 2 weeks from now that I read some headlines about the Russian economy going through severe convulsions to the point where Putin loses control. And he may lose his ability to fund his war. I'm sure he has plenty of weapons and access to plenty of African and North Korean soldiers to put through the meat grinder, and lots of rockets and missiles, so he can still do that. But to pay the army, to pay the people, that's going to be very, very difficult. And since most of the Russian people are blind to what's happening in their country because they only have propaganda and Russian TV, a lot of them don't know what's going on, and they just believe whatever Putin tells them. They're going to come up for a rude awakening as the news spreads throughout Russia that their country is disintegrating from the inside out. Not because they did anything stupid, it's because of Putin and his desires for conquest. Eclipses. Let's keep going. Another eclipse. The European Union. The European Union, I believe, is getting eclipsed out of the bulk protection arrangement with the United States of America. And it's very scary for Europe right now. They are completely aware now, officially, as of today, that they're effectively naked. They do have militaries, all over NATO, all over Europe, but they're tiny and they're poorly funded and poorly managed. And they're scrambling to try and figure out what the hell are we going to do now that Trump doesn't want anything to do with NATO or protecting Europe. It's understandable. I totally agree with Trump and his positions on Europe. So the European Union is getting eclipsed out of USA bulk protection. Part 2 of Europe, the World Economic Forum, the globalists, the European Union leaders, the European Central Bank, all those globalist institutions that are based up there in Northern Europe and England are getting eclipsed out of relevancy because they've already realized and admitted that their globalist agenda has been very badly damaged, and they're trying to scramble. What are we going to do? They are openly admitting that they're not sure what to do. The only thing they've done so far is basically mentally relocate the headquarters to Canada, because Mark Carney is there. He's a commie federal central banker, and he's got very close alliances with China. So Carney is trying to do the Chinification thing on Canada and turn Canada into Chanada, and put it right up there on the border with North America. And of course, Trump is totally aware of all that. So Trump is making it very, very hard for Mark Carney to do what Mark Carney wants to do. So effectively, the globalists are getting eclipsed out of their, let's say, hiding, out of their delusions and illusions and propaganda and treachery that they use to push their agenda to serve themselves at the expense of we the people. They've caused immense damage. If you've seen what's happening all over Europe and what happened in America under Joe Biden, massive destruction and damage through uncontrolled invasion. People who shouldn't be here being brought in here in America and all over Europe. And Europe is waking up. America has already woken up and is doing its best to try and countermeasure the destruction under Biden. But Europe is struggling to catch up because they were so hypnotized and mesmerized by the evils of globalists but now they're waking up. I don't know if you've seen some of these footages, like you go to a McDonald's in Sweden, it's like a hellhole. You go to a McDonald's in Poland, it's immaculate. It's purely because of political choices. I've got a couple more. All right. Now this is going to be a little different version of an eclipse. You've probably heard of Caroline Leavitt. She is the press secretary for the Trump administration. She is spectacular, outstanding, historical in her role as press secretary. She has just retired as of today. On the eclipse, she has eclipsed herself out of office. However, she's going to have massive new starts and new beginnings, of course. It's a Leo new moon. Duh! So I've been ranting all about the eclipses, what's being eclipsed, but we're also talking about new starts and new beginnings. The eclipses happen in order to clear the space for new starts and new beginnings without the encumbrances of what's been left behind. So Caroline Leavitt, I believe, is going to have a long future career in American, maybe politics or society, or in a very strong leadership position, because she has very strong leadership qualities, and Trump absolutely loves her. We don't know who the new speaker is going to be, but anyway, Caroline Leavitt's going to go on to new starts and new beginnings thanks to this Leo new moon eclipse. USA and Donald Trump. Very powerful Leo configurations between USA and Donald Trump and J.D. Vance. I go back to the basics. I believe it's all about classic Leo theme of being awesome, successful, on top, winning, proud, victorious, willing to take massive risks and do what has to be done. Think of also the energy of the lion, the king of the jungle. A lot of the time the lion is just enjoying, basking in his supremacy. But the male lion every now and again has to lash out and kill and destroy anything that he perceives as an enemy in order to continue his rulership, his empire. So it's pretty violent, but again, that's nature. So I think Trump is very much leading by example, using very, very powerful extreme forms of violence on the Iranian death cult. And it's proved to be very, very successful in only 5 months, completely dismantling a 50-year-old extortion racket and putting an end to that evil war prosecuted on Earth for the last 50 years. I see Trump as putting an end to the war, not starting a war. So Trump, I believe, is leading by example. Very powerful Leo new moon energy. And leaving behind all the crap that we don't need anymore, and bringing more and more light, pride, prosperity, success, abundance, leadership to America, and by extension to the world. Europe is noticing this. There's a lot of mimicry happening in Europe, the Save Europe Act, and so on. And more countries in Europe are wanting to emulate America and reclaim their sovereignty as a country so that they don't end up as going down the globalist sewer of evil. And that's working very, very well. It's still going to be a long, tough journey. The Leo new moon, I also believe, is triggering the awakening. Think of the opposition on that chart. Think of Leo with Sun, Moon, Jupiter, and Mercury, all in Leo, facing off directly with Pluto in Aquarius. So it's like this. A massive pile of Leo energy, shining all its energy onto the Aquarius vibes. Like, so there's little Pluto sitting out there billions of miles away going, it's either communism or community. Which is it? Which is it? And effectively, what America, Trump, Vance, the big Leo vibe is doing is saying, excuse me, you have to evolve. Communism has to go. Community has to come. Okay? That's what it's all about. It's very, very simple. I'm using communism as another word for tyranny. In other words, tyranny be gone, freedom come in. Thank you very much. It is a war. The polarity translates into war if things become ugly. It's pure, pure opposition. You've seen what happens when Trump goes face to face with fake news people and he suddenly decides, you know what, I don't like what you just said. You're a total fake liar. And he says it right to their face on world news cameras. There you go. So the globe, our whole species, our whole planet is waking up under this Leo new moon eclipse. Let's forget the eclipse part. Think of the Leo new starts and new beginnings. It's a really, really powerful Leo new moon. So you might as well make the best of it, wherever that lies in your chart. Also, with this Leo awakening thing that's going on, I think it also, new starts and new beginnings with the Leo new moon is also very proudly and very powerfully standing up to the enemies of good. Enemies of good could be anything. A lot of it is financial warfare. The British Empire banking system, the Federal Reserve System. Well, there's a massive war, a massive global war going on right now in the global banking system. Yes, we still have fiat currencies. Yes, we're still printing trillions of dollars because there's no other alternative at the moment. But new pathways are unfolding. And in the meantime, Scott Bessent is using the power of the U.S. Treasury and all its connections as a way to commit financial warfare against other entities that represent evil financial behavior. And it's working. The best example is Russia, Iran, China, and the British Empire. The British are having a very hard time right now because King Charles, the City of London, Lloyd's, and all the central banking systems of Britain, which have been dominant for centuries, are now suffering a massive shock to their cash flow. They're being choked off, completely choked off, because they don't have the extortion racket in Iran anymore. That's part of it. Also the drug racketeering. That's all part of the British Empire extortion thing. That's all being choked off as well. So there's hundreds of billions that used to go into the British Empire coffers in London that are no longer there. Oops. So that's the tone that I feel for today right now and looking over the next 2 weeks. I wouldn't be surprised to see a lot of turbulence over the next few weeks in the global financial system as Scott Bessent turns up the pressure notch by notch by notch by notch all over the world, which will make anybody who operates against the wishes of, let's say, Trump, America, the American financial system, not the American economic system, anybody who is an enemy of that will suffer accordingly. And that's just Leo power energy doing what it has to do. I don't like you anymore. Rip you to shreds. Honestly, the folks in Iran, the leaders of Iran, they're more terrified of Scott Bessent and the Treasury than they are the whole of the American military and Donald Trump and Pete Hegseth and Marco Rubio combined. Scott Bessent. He knows how to destroy a country. And it's working. So over the next 2 weeks, just keep your eyes open, stay awake, stay aware. Maybe make a few notes to yourself. Oh, I see what Teal's talking about. Huh? I wonder what's going to happen at the full moon. Because at the full moon, we're going to have, let me just double check. I'm going to just double check something here. The sun will be in Virgo. And where is it? The sun will be in Virgo, and the moon is going to be in Pisces. So it's going to be a very different storyline. I'm not going to project anything right now. But anyway, that's pretty much all I got for you. I went on longer than I expected, but I guess I had a lot of stuff piled up that I had to get out. All right. Thanks for being here. Yeah, she's gone. I don't know. I would not want to be the press secretary for the Trump administration because he's under permanent attack by 90% of the American media and about 50% of the global media because they're all there. Trump invites them into the White House and the Oval Office deliberately because he wants the world to see what actually happens in Washington and how and why he's doing what he does. And it's working. And he uses it as an opportunity for him to point out all the fakery. MSNBC, MS Now, CNN, ABC, CBS, NBC, all of them. He loves pointing them out very specifically and very personally. I love it. Anyway, yeah. So take care. It's a Wednesday night. Maybe see you in a few days or something. I'm not sure. Good night.